Blog Talk Radio.
The Chiamo, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, Medinde Odwirafo, Kwesi, Ptah, Akhan, Aakhuamuman, Amaruka, Etipimu, Odwirafo, Odwiramaimu. Greetings to all Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, people meaning African Black people. Today is AKANFO NANASOM Day, Ancient Authentic Akan Ancestral Religion Day. My name is Odwirafo, Kwesi, Nehem, Ptah, Akhan, Odwirafo of the Aakhuamuman Nation in North America. Within Odwiraman, the purified nation, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, people in the Western Hemisphere. Yet I say we thank you once again for tuning into the broadcast. We are opening up the chat room right now. If you have any questions or comments, and you'd like to interact in the chat room, you must log in as a user in order to interact. If you have any questions and you'd like to connect via the phone line, you must hit the number 1 so that we can see that your hand is raised. So as we're opening up the information for those who are new to our broadcast, we have 4 broadcasts on a weekly basis. We have AKANFO NANASOM, Ancient Authentic Akan Ancestral Religion, on Joda on Monday nights, where we deal specifically with the Akhan expression of ancestral religion. First and foremost, because we are Akhan. Secondly, because of the misinformation being propagated regarding Akhan ancestral religion, cosmology, culture, and so forth, not only in the Western Hemisphere, but also by those on the continent of Afurakai, who've been infected by white culture, pseudo-religion, and so forth, and therefore their expression of ancestral religion, Akhan, cosmology, and so forth has been infected as well. So we deal with ancient, authentic Akhan ancestral religion, first and foremost showing that we migrated from ancient Khanat, the Khan land, the first land, foremost land, land of the beginning, which is the title of ancient Nubia. We migrated from that region over 2,000 years ago after the fall of northern Kemet. We migrated to the western part of the continent, reestablished ourselves, reestablished the Khanat or Nubian Empire, the Ghana Empire. Hundreds of years after that, because of invasions from the north, we migrated further south towards the forest belt and savanna regions and reestablished Akana civilization in those regions, which is contemporary Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, and the Republic of Ghana. Hundreds of years subsequent to that move, some of our people were taken from those regions and forced into North, Central, South America, the Caribbean, and Europe during the Musuo-Ketie, the Great Perversity, the enslavement era, and this is how our people ended up in North, Central, South America, the Caribbean, and Europe. This is how our Khan people ended up in the West. However, we maintained our ancestral religious practices in the Western Hemisphere. Thus, Akhan ancestral religion is called Winti in Suriname in South America from the Akhan term Quinti. It is called Komfa in Guyana in South America from the Akhan term Okomfo. Akhan ancestral religion is called Obia in Jamaica from the Akhan term Obai. Akhan ancestral religion is called Hoodoo in North America from the Akhan term Undu, which means medicine from roots, trees, plant life. Undu also means to become heavy with the spirit through spirit possession and spirit communication. So we've maintained our ancestral religious practices, and it's through the maintenance of our ancestral religious practices and the guidance from our Nananom Unsamanto, our spiritually cultivated ancestors and ancestors of our direct blood circles, and the Abosom, the forces in nature, that we were guided and empowered in this hemisphere to wage war against the whites and their offspring, massacre them, and force the end of enslavement in the Western Hemisphere. So it is through the power of ancestral religion that we were able to maintain and reclaim our freedom and our sovereignty. So this is what we deal with on the AKANFO NANASOM, Ancient Authentic Akan Ancestral Religion broadcast on Joda Monday nights. Our 3 other broadcasts on Tuesday night, Abinada, we have Ujira, which means purification. We deal with ancestral religion in general, not just the Akhan expression, but our various expressions of ancestral religion wherever we exist in the world as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, and how ancestral religion impacts every aspect of our lives. Ancestral Religion is the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. That means through ritual, we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to incorporate in order to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. And through ritual, we reject those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to reject in order to restore balance to our thoughts, intentions, and actions, and thus realign ourselves with divine order. So the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance, these are the expansive and contracted poles of ancestral religion. We state that through Ojira, purification operationalizes Nanasom. Purification operationalizes our practice of ancestral religion, the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. Our culture is the divine acceptance, the law, the love of order, and the divine hate, rejection of disorder and its purveyors. That is our way of life, our culture. So as we seek to align every thought, every intention, and every action, every moment of every day, we engage that process. When we make legitimate mistakes, we engage the ritual process to incorporate divine law and the ritual process to restore divine balance so that we can get back on track with aligning every thought, intention, and action with divine order every moment of every day. So this is how ancestral religion impacts every aspect of our lives. So that's what we deal with on the broadcast on Tuesday night, Ojira, where we deal with the purification of concepts, purification of cosmology, purification of ritual practice and the understanding of that. It is our ancestral religious practices, as we said, not just with the Akhan tradition, but also the Juju tradition, which is Yoruba in North America, the Voodoo tradition, which is Ebe and Fong in North America, the Wanga tradition, which is Ovambo in North America, and the Gullah constellation, and Gangan, which is Fang ancestral religion in North America, and the various other expressions. It is through these expressions that we were able to maintain ourselves, wage war against the whites and offspring through that proper guidance, and free ourselves from enslavement and force the end of enslavement in the Western Hemisphere. So this is what we deal with. On Wednesday night, we have Egua Marketplace, where we showcase Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit businesses, organizations, and institutions, those who are serving our community in a positive capacity, those who maintain their ancestral religious values in the context of their service to the community. So we've showcased a number of businesses. And when you look at our website and in our publications, you will see those businesses, organizations, and institutions, and we will have more businesses coming on. On our Yauda Thursday night broadcast, Yada Abada Thursday night, we have Ama Affairs of the Nation, where we deal with specific issues that are confronting us as an Oman, as a nation, specifically as Ojirama, the purified nation, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people in the Western Hemisphere. We deal with Amaniate nationism, the purification of nationalism. We deal with an approach to nation building, restoration, rooted in our ancestral religious values. Rooted in our ancestral religious values, meaning that we understand that a nation, an Oman, a nation is a living, breathing entity, like an organ is a living, breathing entity constituted of a number of cells. We are children, cells of that organal structure. When we live in harmony with our function in creation, just like cells live in harmony with their function in the body, they serve that parent organ. We understand a nation to be that same kind of structure. When we live in harmony with our culture, our way of life that's encoded within us spiritually, our relationship with the forces in creation, and our ancestors and ancestors, then we support that organal structure. When we were forced into the Western Hemisphere, we had to learn how to interface with the unique expression of the Abosom, the Orisha, the Vodou, the forces in nature as they manifest in the Western Hemisphere, in this region of the Earth Mother's body. We had to learn how to interface with the Earth Mother divinities in this region of their body. We had to learn how to deal with the plant life, animal life, and mineral life in this region of the Earth Mother's body and so forth. We blended ancestral blood circles, bringing ancestresses and ancestors back through those blended ancestral blood circles as we function in this region of the Western Hemisphere, the western portion of the Earth Mother's body, so therefore we have a locative identity that we have forged based on those blended ancestral blood circles operating in concert with the forces in nature as they manifest in a unique fashion in the West. So we therefore have a unique expression of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit culture and such religious practices, and our approach to nation building restoration, which is rooted in this proper notion of what a nation actually is, the forces in nature that govern that organal structure that we are a part of. So this is what we deal with on that broadcast, AKANFO Affairs of the Nation. So tonight, AKANFO NANASOM, Ancient Authentic Akan Ancestral Religion, we want to get into a specific topic. We posted not long ago a chart called AKYENEBOA, Sacred Animal Totems of the Original Zodiac. So we show the sacred animal totems that come from ancient Afuraitkaitnit, which the whites and their offspring would later copy as animal totems and symbols for the Zodiac. The Zodiac does not come from the Greeks. The Zodiac did not come from the late period in quote-unquote Babylon with the Babylonians. The Zodiac did not come from the early period in so-called Babylon, which prior to that was the Akkadian Empire. Prior to that is called Sumer and so forth. It did not originate there. Our people who migrated from Afuraitkaitnit, Africa, migrated into the so-called Near East thousands of years ago and brought these animal totems with them. These are the exact same animal totems, manifest as signs for the divinities, for the deities, for the Abosom, the Orisha, the Vodou, the NTORO, and so forth. The same deities who possess our people communicate with our people through spirit possession, spirit communication, divination, and so forth today. These are the exact same deities who possessed and communicated with our people back then. Prior to our move into the Near East, we were dealing with these deities with these same animal totems, and we took those animal totems into the Near East, of course. As, of course, we would carry our tradition wherever we went. So when you look at the quote-unquote signs of the Zodiac, when you trace the original deities who carry these animal totems, you will find all of them in ancient Khanit and Kamit, thousands of years prior to the existence of Greeks on earth, thousands of years prior to the civilization of Sumer, which would later be called Akkad and later be called Babylon. So we proved that conclusively. So these individuals who've been misinforming our people, talking about the Babylonians created the Zodiac, totally inaccurate. We can give a quick example of how our people mapped out the sky with the proper totems from the Runu Pert Imheru. And of course, we can showcase that in this, the work that we put forward, including this chart with the proper deities who manifest through these animal totems, will be part of a publication, a forthcoming publication. We have 31 books out now. We have a number of books coming out. This will be part of one of those books. But if you look at one of our books, Kamet, HENA, NTORO, The Black Nation and Divinity, we showcase this information just to give you a snapshot, to give you an idea. And before we go to that, I just want to make sure we didn't miss anything. If you're in the chat room, you must log in as a user in order to interact. If you don't have a username, you can sign up for one quickly in Blog Talk. If you're on the phone line, you hit the number 1 so that we can see that your hand is raised, so that we can take a question. So I just want to make sure, give me 1 second right quick. Okay, so in our publication, The Black Nation and Divinity, which is Kamet, HENA, NTORO, there's a specific, let me turn the sound off right quick. There's a specific chapter from the Runu Pert Imheru that we show. And let me give you that chapter real quick. We show the imagery from that particular chapter because it's directly related to what we're talking about. that particular chapter 148. So when you look at the chapter 148, what they will call chapter 148, and then the following pieces 185, but they're actually all part of the same linked piece. When you look at that particular chapter, the imagery in the chapter is what's instructive with regard to the map of the sky. So you see 7 cows, and those 7 cows, underneath the 7 cows, you see a bull divinity. So those 7 cows have their own names and so forth. Those are the 7 HENA divinities. Sometimes they're shown as 7 cows. Sometimes they're shown as 7 female deities. Those are the 7 HENA. Then you see the bull, and in the text it says this is the bull, the husband of the 7 cow divinities. So this bull divinity is the deity Ptah men. And Ptah and men are working together in the same vessel, just like you can get in the car. You can be driving, and then you can have a passenger who gets in the same vehicle. Ptah operates through the formative power of the brain and the thalamus and so forth. And men is also governing the central nervous system, the brain, in connection with the spinal cord and so forth, and his crown. And you see his crown with the red ribbon falling from the back of the head of the crown all the way to the ground and so forth. That is the central nervous system. We did a broadcast on that as well as publications on that. So you'll see Ptah and men working together within the brain structure. So they also work together in this animal totem. Sometimes divinity is called men, sometimes Ptah men, when we're focused on the functions of these deities. So you see this bull divinity, and you see the 7 cows, the 7 HENA right next to the bull divinity. He's the husband of the 7 cows. Right next to that, you see 4 rudders, and they call these the 4 rudders of the sky. In the papyrus of Ani, it's 4 rudders. In certain other papyri, instead of the 4 rudders, you have the 4 sons of Heru, those 4 divinities. Ketsenwat, Dwamutef, Hapen, Amoste, the 4 sons of Heru. So whether it's 4 rudders, or the 4 sons of Heru, and the 4 sons of Heru are the 4 rudders of the sky and so forth, you have them. Then you have 12 bearded divinities. And when you look at our book, Khanit, Kamit, HENA, NTORO, and the Black Nation and Divinity, or just simply we show this image, or just go to chapter 148. You can Google chapter 148 in the Book of the Dead, Egyptian Book of the Dead. You will see this imagery. 12 bearded divinities. And then behind the 12 bearded divinities, you'll see Alsar inside of a pavilion. Alsar is mummified. He's inside of a pavilion, a shrine. Why is that instructive? Why is it important? What is it related to? It gives a direct GPS to the sky so you can see what we were talking about. The 7 female divinities are the 7 HENA. Those are the 7 sisters, 7 sister divinities. Those are the 7 stars of the Pleiades. They're called the 7 sisters in different cultures because they learned about that from our people. In our Khan tradition, that is very significant for us because the 7 stars of the Pleiades system are called Abrewa Nanitmba, which is the eldest woman and her children. Those are 7 female divinities. Those are shrines for 7 female forces in creation. And there are 7 ancestresses who are governed by those 7 female divinities in our Khan culture. And those 7 female ancestresses are the heads of the 7 Akhan great matriarch clans. If you can't trace descent to one of those 7 females, or head of one of those 7 clans, then you are not Akhan. Our identity is tied to those 7 great ancestresses. Every Akhan person, the 20 million plus Akhan people in Ghana and Ivory Coast, and the millions of Akhan people in the Western Hemisphere, whether we're in North America, in Suriname, and in Jamaica, in Guyana, wherever we are, practicing our traditions, all of us are descendants of one of those 7 female ancestresses who are governed by those 7 female divinities. That is the Pleiades star system. Up under the 7 cows, you see the bull divinity. If you look in the sky right next to the 7 Pleiades stars, you have the bull, quote-unquote, Taurus. So we had the bull in ancient Kemet connected to the 7 deities of the Pleiades, the 7 sisters. That bull totem goes back to thousands of years. It did not originate in Babylon and learn from the Greeks, and then we learned about the bull, quote-unquote, Taurus, and incorporated that. As you can see, when you look at the Pert in Heru, which is taken from the pyramid text, there were no Greeks in existence when the pyramid texts were composed. So this bull divinity, and then when you look in Nabta Playa and so forth, you'll see the bull and cow divinities going back over 15,000 years and even beyond that. So these are sacred. Then you have the 4 rudders of the sky and 12 bearded divinities. In the text, those 4 rudders can also be the 4 sons of Heru. The Whites and Offspring will say the 4 rudders is the shield of Orion, and then you have the stars of Orion. In ancient Kemet, the text identified Osar as dwelling within the constellation of Orion, which is called Sa or Sahu. When he's operating through that constellation, he's called Osar Sa. Osar operating within Sa or Orion. In the text, they say there are 12 attendants of Orion or Sahu, 12 attendants of Osar. So those 12 stars, those 12 bearded divinities, these are the 12 attendants of Sa or Orion. So you see Osar in his pavilion standing there. In front of him are these 12 bearded divinities. These are the 12 attendants of Sahu or Orion. And then the 4 sons of Heru, which are his grandsons and so forth, those 4 sons of Heru plus the 12 bearded divinities, these are 16 deities connected to Osar. And of course, we did a 4-part series on Osar and the 16 symbol divination, including Erin Dilogun in the Yoruba tradition, or the Ikin, the 16 palm nuts. We have 16 symbol divination all over Afuraitkaitnit, Afuraitkaitnit. When you're talking about Osar being mummified, and he pulls together those 16 parts of his body after his body was cut up into 16 pieces, not 14, but the texts talk about 16. And then those 16 pieces were pulled together and bound together. That's akin to us grabbing those 16 shells of nuts and pulling them together in a harmonious fashion to gather some meaning from them. So we did a broadcast dealing with that. So what you have here is the constellation Sa. It's in the right position. The 12 bearded divinities, which are the 12 patriclan divinities in our Akhan culture. We have 12 patriclan divinities and 7 matriclan divinities. The 7 Het Heru are the 7 matriclan divinities in our Akhan culture that govern our matriclans. The 12 patriclan divinities you see here are the 12 patriclan deities, or Abosom, or NTORO, as you find in the Akhan tradition as well. But the key is the positioning is the same positioning that you see in the sky. When you lay out this text and overlay it with a map of the sky in that region, you will see the Pleiades in the right position, in the same position as the 7 cows. You see the bull Taurus in the same position as you see this bull deity in Kemet in the text here. You see the 4 rudders of the 4 sons of Heru in the same position as the shield of Orion, and then you see these 12 divinities that are attendants of Osar, as making up the 12 stars that attend the constellation of Orion and so forth. So we have a map of the sky in this section. This is just one section we wanted to point out, but when you look throughout the Runu, Pert, and Heru, as well as the coffin texts, as well as the pyramid text, you will find, especially the coffin text and the Runu, Pert, and Heru, the so-called Book of the Dead, because they lay out the imagery and so forth, but you also see it in temples of Kemet, tombs of Kemet, and so forth. When you see the star charts and everything, we're laying out the stars and so forth in the sky, but we also have the deities who have the sacred animal totems. When you look on our chart, and the link is there for our blog, Odwirafo, with the AKYENEBOA Sacred Animal Totems chart, we show the 13 constellations and the animal totems associated with those 13 constellations. Those same animal totems, including Banebjed, the great ram divinity, is where they get Aries, the ram, and so forth. You have Ptah, the bull divinity, where sacred animal totem for Ptah, the bull, where you get Taurus from. We have Shu and Tefnut, the twin divinities, male and female, where you get the Gemini constellation from, and so forth. Heru and Aket, the great Sheset and Ankh, the Sphinx, so-called Sphinx, or Sheset and Ankh. Heru and Aket is there, so-called Leo, and so forth. Kunwimu, the great flat-horned ram divinity, where they get Capricorn and so forth, and Neat, the great archeress, where they get Sagittarius from. Serket, the scorpion divinity, the scorpion NTORO, the goddess, where they get Scorpio from. So all the different divinities, of course, Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer, which is actually Sekhmet, who bears the serpent and is a great healeress and so forth, and enforceress of divine order, executor of divine justice, executress of divine justice. So we go through all of the different animal totems. These are ancient animal totems that have always been associated with these deities before migrating into the Near East. That includes Pisces. That includes the two fish. You will find these two divinities in the Runu Pert Imheru, the so-called Book of the Dead. So, we want to bring forward some information that white Egyptologists have no understanding of, and those who call themselves metaphysicians, white metaphysicians and so forth, they have not brought forth this information either. When you look at the imagery that we use for the show, that we pulled together for the show, the image that's the promotional image for the show, there are a number of different images, and this in and of itself is a book in and of itself. And we're going to go through them and explain exactly who are the two deities who govern Pisces, so-called Pisces. Every constellation is a shrine. A collection of stars radiates a specific configuration of energy that is in harmony with the divinities that govern it, and they take up a residence in that collection, that configuration of energy, and it transmits that energy to Earth. So every constellation is embodied by, or is a shrine for specific deities, NTORO, NTORO2, and so forth. When you communicate with the actual deities, then you have an understanding about what this quote-unquote sign has to do with it. It's not just a sign or a symbol. We're talking about invoking deities. When you talk about Aries, the ram totem, the deity Banibjed is a divinity that we communicate with. We pour libation to, who possesses our people, communicates with our people through divination, through spirit possession. People who are governed by this divinity have a relationship with him. He is an Abosom, he's an Orisha, he's a Vodou, he's an NTORO, a divinity. Shu and Tefnut are deities. It's not just Gemini, some are just a sign and has little characteristics. We communicate with the deities of quote-unquote Gemini, Shu and Tefnut. Pisces is a European name, of course, coming from Pisc and so forth, and fish and so forth. This is where it comes from, and it's rooted a corrupted version of our ancient ancestral terms. But the two fish are symbolized or symbols or shrines for a male and a female deity. When you can communicate with the male and female deity who have these animal totems or AKYENEBOA as their representatives, then you're dealing with quote-unquote Pisces. If you're not communicating with the deities who govern the constellation and govern these animal totems, then you really don't know what quote-unquote Pisces is. And the same is true of the various other signs. If we're not communicating with the deities, the forces in nature who govern them, then we really don't understand them. All we can do is glean some information, we read about some information, what people say about these signs, what the Greeks and Romans and others and Arabs glean from reading specific texts about general characteristics of an individual who's associated with these signs and so forth. and then people cobble information together. But when you have someone who goes beyond that and who's intuitive and can communicate with the forces in creation directly and deliberately, not just unconsciously, which all of our people can, but consciously, and then bring forth messages directly from the spirits that animate these constellations, now you have somebody who's actually engaged in quote-unquote astrology for real. And we do have sisters and brothers who can actually communicate with the forces in creation consciously. All of us communicate with them unconsciously, but we have to cultivate that, responsibility and that capacity to communicate with the deities that govern us on a conscious level. That is our responsibility as adults. The deities that govern your crop, your Okraa, your head, your metric plan and patric plan divinities. It is our responsibility as adults when we start this as children to learn how to communicate with these forces in nature that govern us, and so that we can maximize our potential. The unique configuration of energy that we've been given. Some of us are children of fiery divinities. We have that fiery kind of energy. We need to fully optimize that, learn how to utilize that energy, and then wield it in our lives to bring that energy into our community. Some of our people are children of watery divinities. We need to utilize that watery energy at its fullest capacity so it can serve the communal body of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people. That is our responsibility. Some of our people take that responsibility seriously right away. Some of our people we've been conditioned away from that. Those of our people who take that responsibility seriously and can attune to the forces in nature when they do something like a quote-unquote astrological chart, they're doing actual real divination because they're connecting with the deities. If somebody's just memorizing some information they learned from some European websites and repeating it to you, it's always going to be hit or miss. So we're going to deal with the actual deities. Who are these two deities you see in the image on the left? The two divinities, and you see their names. In the Medusa, we laid the Medusa out. Anit is the female fish divinity. Remi, he's also called Abju, is the male fish deity. So you see Remi, it says the fish god. You see Anit, it says a mythological fish, one of the two fish pilots of Ra. Talking about the pilots of the boat of Ra. We show the image of the divinities on the left. You'll see Abju or Remi. He has on his head the standard of the fish gnome or the fish sepat in ancient Kemet. This is the fish divinity. This is not Hapi as a fish god, but this is Remi, the fish god, also called Abju. And then you have Anit, which is the fish goddess. And you'll also find that Anit is a title of Dendera, and we're going to get into why Anit as a title of Dendera is also a title of the divinity Anit, and why she's also called Anit as the female fish. We show the Medusa, we show those two deities. Of course, we show two fish, but we show the two deities, the spirit forces in creation, whose animal totems are the fish, so we show them in their anthropomorphic forms, the male and female divinity. We also show their totemic forms, which are the two fish. These are twin divinities. Now, who are these deities and what are their roles? First, it says a mythological fish, one of the two fish pilots of Ra. So if you look, it says in this particular image, you'll see it says BD 1543. What that's saying is the Book of the Dead, chapter 15. This is where they got the glyphs from. So let's go to chapter 15 in the so-called Book of the Dead, the Runu Pert and Meru, and what do they have to say about these two fish divinities? So if you go to chapter 15, you can download a copy of the so-called Book of the Dead. We're reading from the Papyrus of Ani version of the Book of the Dead here. So we're going to pull that up. We're not going to read the whole, we don't have to read the whole piece. We just want to get to the section in context where we're talking about, the right section. So hold on one second. Let me pull this up. So when they're talking about Ra sailing through his boat, so the boat of Ra, you'll see that there are different versions of this. Sometimes you will see Ra himself as a mummified falcon divinity sitting, the body of a male, the head of a falcon, sitting mummified in the boat, and in front of him is a huge disk of the Aten underneath the sun. And then sometimes they'll show, like in the image we have here, of just the head of Ra as the falcon, and then he has the disk of the sun, the Aten, the Atenit, on his head. The key here is the sun is called Aten and Atenit, the male and female forces that animate the sun. Ra utilizes the sun and other stars to transmit his spiritual energy. Ra and Ra'et created the sun, the Aten, Atenit. They're not the sun god or the sun goddess. Aten is the sun god. Atenit is the sun goddess. And Ra and Ra'et will possess Aten and Atenit, possess the sun, just like a spirit can possess your body, get inside of your body. You take the back seat, just like if you were driving the car, someone got into the front seat, you got out the front seat and got in the back seat, and they began driving the car. There are two individuals in the same vessel, and you took a back seat. You're no longer directing the vessel. Somebody else is driving for a period. Then they get out of the car, and you get back in the front seat. That's what spirit possession is. So when our people get possessed by the Orisha, the Abosom, the Vodou, the NTORO, including the Ra and Ra'et, that's what takes place. They don't just possess us as Afurakani human beings, but also possess planets, suns, moons, stars to transmit their energy. So when they possess Aten and Atenit, they utilize that orb, that solar orb, to transmit their divine living energy to Earth. So there's a difference between the sun god, sun goddess, which is Aten and Atenit, and Ra and Ra'et. So you'll see Ra sitting in the boat of the sun, the solar bark, sailing across the sky from the east to the west, from the mountain range of the east, Ptah, to the mountain range of the west, Meni, or also called Menu, and so forth, in the west. So he's sailing in the boat. And when he's sailing, because the atmosphere is full of moisture, so you're in a boat sailing through that celestial water and so forth. And when he's sailing, he has two pilot fish that are guiding the sailing of the solar bark across the sky. Those two pilot fish are Anit and Remi. Remi is also called Akju. So let's read about them in the text, and then we'll get more in depth. So it says, let's go to a specific section. We don't have to go to the whole piece. It says, all you deities of the mansion of the spirit, who judge sky and earth in the balance, who give food and provisions, Tatanin, the unique one, creator of mankind, O southern, northern, western, and eastern companies of the deities, give praise to Ra, master of the sky, the sovereign who made the deities. Worship him in his goodly shape when he appears in the day bark or the day boat. So he's in the day boat, and the various deities are being admonished to worship Ra when he manifests and so forth. May those who are above worship you. May those who are below worship you. May Tahuti and Ma'at write to you daily. Your serpent foe has been given over to the fire, and the rebel serpent is fallen. In other translations, the enemy has been killed, the enemy has been destroyed. His arms are bound, and Ra has taken away his legs. He's been bound up, the enemy, and Ra cut his legs from him. And the children of impotence are non-existent. That means those who are trying to attack the Creator and attack those who are living in harmony with order, the children of impotent revolt have been destroyed, showing that there's a divine mandate to kill and destroy our enemies, coming directly from Ra, the Creator. The mansion of the sovereign is in festival. The noise of shouting is in the great place. The deities are enjoyed when they see Ra in his appearing, his rays flooding the lands. talking about operating through the sun and the sunlight when the sun rises and the beams shoot across, the landscape and so forth and throughout the sky, the deities operating through creation, the oceans, rivers, land, atmosphere, they are filled up with the energy of Ra as manifest through sunlight, and they quote-unquote rejoice as they receive that energy and reverberate that energy. The majesty of this noble deity proceeds. He has entered the land of Menu, which is the land of the west, the setting sun. The land is bright at his daily birth, which is the land of the east, Bakau. And he has attained his state of yesterday, meaning when he sets in the west and then he returns to the east after going through the 12 hours of the night, he has returned to his state of yesterday, meaning he is returned or quote-unquote resurrected, rising in the east once again. Then it says, may you be gracious to me when I see your beauty, having departed from upon earth. May I smite the ass divinity, talking about the ass, which is the donkey, which is talking about misguided virility, misguided desire or lust and so forth. May I drive off the rebel serpent. May I destroy Apep. When he asks, for I have seen the Abju fish, or the deity Abju, the deity Remi, in his moment of being, and I have seen Anit, the fish divinity Anit, piloting the canoe or the boat on its waterway. I have seen Heru as the helmsman of the boat with Tehuti and Ma'at beside him. I have taken hold of the bow of the boat, of the night bark, and I have taken hold of the stern of the boat, the day bar. May he grant that I see the sun disk and behold the moon unceasingly every day. May my spirit go forth to travel to every place which it desires. May my name be called out. May it be found at the board of offerings. May there be given to me offerings in the presence like the followers of Heru. May a place be made for me in the solar bark on the day when the deity ferries across, and may I be received into the presence of Alsar in the land of vindication for the Ka of Ani, who this papyrus was written for. So it's talking about the boat of Ra sailing across the sky, Remi and Anit, the male and female deities, or the fish divinities guiding that boat of Ra across the sky. Now, look at the Medutu, you'll see that Anit, the determinative is that of a fish. It's spelled out Anit, but the determinative symbol is a fish. And in Remi, it's spelled out Remi, R-M-I, and so forth, and the determinative symbol is a fish. Then we have the same two terms under that with different meanings. Anit, once again, the determinative symbol for Anit in different renditions is an eye. And it says a twinkling of an eye. And the word Eni means eye in Kamit. The word Eni means eye in Akhan. Then we have the term Rem, and it means to weep, and the determinative symbol is an eye. So we have Anit, which is the female fish divinity, but then Anit also has a symbol of an eye. We have Remi, which is the male fish divinity, but then Rem or Remi also has the determinative symbol of an eye. What is the relationship between the two fish deities for the pilots of the boat of Ra, the solar barb, but then also the terms Anit and Remi meaning eye. This is the information that the so-called Egyptologists, as well as our people who have been following Egyptologists, don't have. So this will be the first time that anyone has the information dealing with the nature of these deities. If you look at your face, of course, and you see these fish are always shown from the side view. Your two eyes and the elliptical shape of the two eyes are in the form of two fish. Your two eyes are the two fish. In between the two eyes is the quote-unquote third radiant eye. And of course, that third radiant eye is that eye of internal vision or that eye of spiritual insight. So you see Ra in the midst of the boat with the solar disk and so forth, but you see, if you look in the image, you'll see that we have the boat. Sometimes they will show two fish, but in this particular image, on both ends of the boat, they show two eyes. This is the representation of Anit, meaning eye, Anit, meaning fish. Remi, meaning eye, Remi, meaning fish. These are the two eyes. Now, we did a broadcast on the great mother divinity called Hatmehit. She is the wife of Banijed in northern Kemet. She has a dolphin, a fish divinity on her head, and she is called Hatmehit, or the foremost of the fish. And when you look at the symbol of that fish, the way it's curved on her head, and you look at a cross-section of the head of the individual, you'll see that the pharynx connected to the throat and into the nasal cavity and connected to the, oral structures and so forth. The pharynx is a fish in the same form within your head. So when you see Hatmehit, her sacred sanctuary within the body is the pharynx. We've talked about her being the head or the foremost of the fish, meaning when you see a school of fish and they're swimming and then there's a fish in the lead, when that fish changes directions all of a sudden and moves in another direction, then the entire school of fish all move in the same direction. How are they able to do that? This is not choreographed. They didn't take dance classes on Saturday to practice those movements. When the foremost one of the fish, the head of the fish, Hatmehit, or the foremost one, Hat of the fish, Mehit, when she decides, when she tunes into the fact that there's a predator coming forward and so forth in the direction that they're swimming, she attunes to that. She has that capacity, and she makes a decision. We are going in another direction, so I can save the school of the fish, and they move in another direction. And once the head of the fish moves, then all of the other fish move. When you look inside the pharynx, which is a fish-shaped structure within your own head, right in the midst of the oral structures and so forth, you'll find that the fish have a form of sonar that they send out. And that head fish sends out a sonar unit of sound. And once the other fish pick up on that, and it moves throughout the entire school of the fish in nanoseconds, and they all move in the right direction. We have that same capacity. We're constantly radiating energy, but right in that center, when we engage in ritual practice, ritual chant, as well as ritual breathing practices, we're sending out that kind of sonar symbol or sound as well, even if we're not speaking. So you can think about somebody very intently that you haven't thought about in a long time, and then all of a sudden that person will call you on the phone, and you'll say, I was just thinking about you. That's when you're doing it unconsciously. But when you engage the ritual process at your shrine to engage this process, then you can project in the same fashion. We can attune to one another when there's danger, attune to one another so we can make the proper moves or change course when we need to change course. So Hatmehit, the foremost of the fish, she's the one who can attune to the proper direction that we need to go. And if we need to change lanes, she is the one that will make that change. And she will send that sonar signal out, and the entire school of fish will get the signal, and they will change lanes all at the same time. The same happens with birds and so forth. You see birds flying, they send out that signal, the one who's in front, and then all the birds move and fly in another direction at the same time. So that's what she's doing as the head of the fish. But once the change takes place and you move into that, change lanes and move in that next direction, you have to have the people or the school or the body or the community perpetuate that and continue in that same process. They need to stay on track. They need to remain guided and collected and move, in a harmonious direction. They don't need to veer off and fall off into another lane where predators can get them, or they can be isolated from the larger group and lose out on nourishment, or maybe become isolated and suffer and die. So they have to be guided on that new direction so they can stay with the school and keep moving forward and keep advancing. There are 2 pilots that help guide the entire school towards the new direction. Hatmahit leads you in the new direction because she can attune to what the new direction should be. Once she attunes and moves the entire group into the new direction, they must be guided as they continue to move forward, as they continue to advance. And those pilots on both sides are guiding the community. Ra knows what direction he needs to go. There are other deities in the boat of Ra and so forth, but then you have the pilot fish who are guiding and protecting the boat as it sails across the sky, repelling enemies and so forth, and keeping the boat on track. They talk about the pilot's fish there, and then you have Heru at the prow. He's at the helm, and then you have Tehutium and Ma'at on both sides of him giving wisdom and the codification of that wisdom. And then the person says, I want to be on that boat. Allow me to get on that boat so I can get on the vessel that's leading me in the right direction. I want to be guided with Tehuti and Ma'at, so I've aligned myself with them. I want to be guided by Remi and Anit. So when I'm on the right track, I can stay on the right track and so forth. So this is what that's talking about. Within your body, you have the 2 eyes. They're in the form of Anit and Remi. They are your 2 eyes, Anit, eye, Remi, eye, also have the same form of the fish from the side view. The fish, Anit, Remi, Anit. Your eye is the Anit, and Remi is also the fish, Anit and Remi. And when those 2 eyes work together and keep you in balance, then you can stay on the right track. But if for some reason the eyes get blurred or the eyes get, covered and so forth, then you fall out of balance. So we must align with Anit and Remi. We align with Hatmahit so we can find out what direction do we need to take. If we're on a certain direction, we're engaged in certain activities every day, and then obstacles confront us. Hatmahit, operating within our fairings, directs us, okay, you need to stop and you need to change lanes. Even if you're driving down the street, Hatmahit within your head can tell you you need to change lanes immediately, even though you may not know why. To give an example, a number of years ago, I was driving down an expressway, basically a highway, driving, just regular driving, everything was fine. All of a sudden, I get this overwhelming urge, I need to change lanes right now. But I didn't see any reason to change lanes, so I kept driving. The Unsamafo, as well as the Abosom, Divinity is telling me you need to change lanes immediately. So it was such an overwhelming urge, I didn't see a reason for it, but I changed lanes. I changed lanes and kept going. Moments later, for some reason, the person that was in front of me, for some unknown reason, they slammed on the brakes. When they slammed on the brakes, and I saw this in my mirror, when they slammed on the brakes, the person who was behind them slammed on their brakes to try to avoid them, and then they slid off the road, and the road was actually up high on a hill with a very steep incline with trees and everything down below. That person slammed on the brakes, trying to avoid the person that slammed in front of them. They skidded, the car spun, and it slid down that deep, deep hill, which was like a ravine, and that person slammed into all those trees down at the bottom of that hill. There's no way they survived that. If you saw how high up the hill was and how they careened down the side of that embankment, they wouldn't have survived that. It all happened within a few seconds. If I hadn't paid attention to the divinity in the head saying you need to change lanes right now, I would have been driving behind that person. They would have slammed on the brakes. I would have slammed on my brakes just like the other person did to try to avoid them, and I would have slid off the side of the road as well, and I wouldn't be here right now. But they told me to change lanes, and I obeyed, and I changed, and within seconds, that series of events took place, and I could see it all unfold in my mirror within seconds. So HENA heat will direct you to change lanes when you need to change lanes. If you're engaged in certain activities, certain endeavors, an occupation, even when our people were escaping from enslavement, we're running in a certain direction. We don't know anything about the terrain. If we're escaping from Virginia, we don't know anything about North Carolina. We don't know anything about, what is now West Virginia. We've never seen bears before. We don't know what's happening, but we're escaping from enslavement. So we had to have a GPS. And HENA heat would direct us, okay, you're moving in this direction now. Now it's time to change direction and move in this direction. Maybe the crackers were sending dogs after us. We need to change direction. So we would change direction. So we got the direction of HENA heat, and she would always point us in the right direction. However, we needed those pilots on the side to keep the entire community maintaining that direction that HENA heat led us to. She had the right direction, but we need those guys. We need those, pilots to keep us together as a community, moving in the right direction so we don't create obstacles and disorder in the process. Your two eyes allow you, not only when your Okraa, your Ka, your soul, your divine consciousness moves you in a different direction. The divinities operating through the two eyes, physical as well as spiritual, keep you focused on that direction, keeps your focus there. Not just because you have an instinct to move in a different direction, but you need to keep focus on what you're doing. It's one thing to get some new information, even if you are changing your diet and learning about dietary practices and you want to lose weight or overcome high blood pressure or arthritis or diabetes or whatever it is. You can learn all the information you want. You can get on this new diet and so forth. But if you do not keep focus and maintain your balance, then it doesn't matter that you know all of this information and have the right direction and have the right instructions. It's meaningless, because if you lose focus, then you fall off and you create more problems for yourself. You must keep focus. So those two eyes, or those two fish, those two eyes maintain that inner eye that's in the middle of the quote-unquote forehead. You see the two eyes on the both ends of the boat of Ra and the radiant energy in the middle. If you want to understand how the two eyes help you to maintain balance, you can understand that on a mundane level. And we talked about this when we talked about the deity Ma'al, the male deity Ma'al, and the female divinity Ma'at. And we can use the same example here right now to prove that Anit and Remi, the deities of the two eyes, that help to maintain balance and help you to keep focus so you can maintain your balance on a mundane level, to prove that that's what they really actually are. They're the two fish, Anit, Remi, but also the two eyes, Anit, Remi, and they are the pilots of the boat of Ra, the pilots of that radiant energy that's dwelling within you, that's moving you forward. You can do a simple exercise to prove that to you right now. So if you're listening to the broadcast, a very simple exercise to prove this is to stand up right now. And as you're standing, first what you're going to do is lift up one leg, bend your knee back, just lift up one leg and balance on one foot. And hold that balance for a few seconds. That's not very difficult. Just lifting up, bending your leg at the knee and balancing for a few seconds. And then put your leg back down. Now, the next thing you're going to do is do the exact same thing, but we're going to add one more element. So you're standing once again. You lift up your leg, just bend your leg at the knee so you can just balance on your right leg. You're balancing for a few moments. That's very simple. Now, the one thing that we're going to add as you're balancing, keep balancing and simply close both of your eyes and keep them closed. Now, anybody who's doing that, you notice that all of a sudden, as soon as you close your eyes, you start losing balance and falling all over the place. As soon as the eyes are closed, you start to lose your balance. As soon as the two pilots of the boat of Ra are shut down, you begin to lose your balance. When your eyes are open, you have focus. Your eyes take in the various aspects of your environment spatially, consider all those different entities, and then center you within those different entities and balance you out. No different than if you have a camera, and it will balance out, you know, if things are shaky, it will balance them out and so forth. When you open your eyes, when you're scanning your environment, your eyes are also spatially centering you in your environment. When you close your eyes, you lose that spatial consideration, and all of a sudden you begin to lose your balance. But when you open your eyes, then you can regain your balance. Now, if you close your eyes and begin to lose your balance, then you have to focus your energy, you have to send your energy up to the vestibular system, your center of balance between the two ears, which intersects with the pharynx and so forth. And then you have to use that inner eye to regain your balance if your eyes are closed. But the key is, when your two eyes are open, it's easy to balance yourself. When you close those two eyes, those two pilots, then all of a sudden you begin to lose your balance. That's proof that Anit and Remi, the two fish, Anit and Remi, the two eyes, the pilots of the boat of Ra, these are the two eyes. In the middle of those two eyes is the radiant energy in between. Within your physical body, you have the two eyes, but you have that third eye of radiant energy that goes up the spine and crests in between the two eyes and then above the head and so forth. That's shown in the text with the disc above the head of Ra and so forth. That has nothing to do with Hinduism. They learned that from our people. This is why you see the deities with the disc of the sun surmounted by a serpent on their head and so forth, that radiant disc. This is where that comes from. And that predates anything in India about thousands of years. So you see those two eyes and you see that radiant energy in between. You see the two eyes on the boat of Ra, and you see the radiant energy of Ra in between. And they are the pilots. So when you look at the term Pisces and you look at the meaning for that, the whites and their offspring, we'll talk about, for example, in the Arabic language, they talk about al-risa, which means a cord or a rope. And they talk about the imagery of Pisces with the rope tying the two fish together. And it has something to do with bondage or being bound. It shows the rope of the, or a string between the two fish, and they're hanging, like when you capture fish and so forth, and they're hanging from a little rope and so forth. If you look at the ways the whites and their offspring, the Greeks in ancient Kemet, once they invaded, and the, imagery in the temple of Dendera with the Zodiac, they have the two ropes with the cords tied to the two fish of Pisces, binding them and so forth. So some people say that Pisces with the two ropes binding them has something to do with bondage and so forth, or enslavement. So what is this association? Why do the Arabs say it needs a cord or a well rope, and it has to do with bondage or tying or binding someone down? Where does that come from? Once again, we go to our actual text of ancient Kemet, and then we get a better understanding. So when you look at the term Anit, we said it means fish. Of course, it also means eye. But then when you also look at the term Anit, it also means a cord or a rope. So the Arabs and the Greeks and so forth, they learned about this notion of something associated with these fish deities has something to do with the rope, has something to do with the cord, has something to do with something bound to a certain extent or being pulled to a certain extent, but they don't know why. But in our own culture, in our own language, Anit, fish, Anit, eye, Anit, in the Medusa, the hieroglyphs, rope or cord. But it has nothing to do with what's being bound or enslaved. It has to do with exactly what we're talking about. Talk about Hatmehit, the fish divinity, finding the right direction, the GPS, changing lanes and so forth, and taking us in a new direction. And then the pilots on both sides of the boat of Ra, keeping us guided and directed, the whole community, to maintain that new direction, that new lane that we're on. How do they maintain that? If you look at something for simple as crowd control or says, well, we're engaged in crowd control, so we have some ropes, and we're going to cordon off this area, and we're going to cordon off this crowd. Cordon off meaning cords, or using ropes to cord it off. What you're doing is you're using the cords of the ropes, quote unquote, these sacred bonds of Anit, the cord, and Remi, the cord. You're using that to corral or cordon off the community and direct them and keep them bound together. Not bounded with regard to slavery, but keep the community bound together so they can stay together on that same land. That energy of An, Anit, and Remi on both sides of the boat of Ra, they're not only repelling, as we read in the text, repelling the enemies, repelling Apep, repelling, smiting the ass and so forth, repelling the children of impotent revolt and the serpent fiend and the legs of bound and all of that. As it was saying in the text, not only are they repelling disorder as they move through creation, and we're going to talk about that solar and lunar energy of these fish divinities, they're repelling disordered emanations so that you can stay on balance. When your eyes, your spiritual eyes are focused, you repel disordered emanations or disordered projections, desires, lusts, influences from other individuals, thought projections and so forth, as well as when people are engaged in ritual work trying to project or send discarnate entities to you to try to influence you or push you or move you. When you're sending that energy to that region of the head region, to the sacred shrine of your Ka, which is in the head, through that area you can repel negative entities, negative projections, negative desires, lusts, all these different things. When the two eyes, the two fish, Anit and Remi, are operating harmoniously, optimally, you can repel that, but you also, that's the repulsive part. That's that centrifugal force. But then the centripetal force, or the inward magnetizing force, is the inward magnetizing force that draws the community together. The outward, external, obliterating force is repelling the negative entities. But the inward, force that's drawing, magnetic force that's drawing us together, is pulling us together in a communal, harmonious fashion. It's pulling your thoughts, intentions, and actions together in a harmonious fashion so you can stay on track and move forward in the direction that Hatma Heat directed you to move, and to stay that way, to perpetuate that communal movement. The pilot fish have those two cords of energy on the outside repelling, but on the inside maintaining or containing. So these are the two cords that are moving. These are the two eyes on both sides of the boat of Ra. It talks about in the text, later in the text, as it talks about repelling the enemies and everything else, it says, I have seen Abju or Remi, the Abju fish or Remi, Abju, in his moment of being, and I have seen Anit piloting the canoe on the waterway. I have seen, a play on words, the I, and then it shows the fish. It's also the determinative of an I. They have seen Anit. I have seen Abju or Remi, and they're piloting the boat. But then later on in the text, it talks about the night bark and the day bark, meaning the night boat and the day bark. May he grant that I see the sun disk, the Aten Atenit, and behold the Yo, behold the moon. Now I see the sun disk, and may I behold the moon. The right eye of Ra is the sun, the left eye of Ra is the moon. In that structure, those pupil structures of the sun and moon, the eye structure itself is Anit and Remi, and then you have the pupil structures, which are the sun and moon. When it says, I have seen the Abju boat or Remi's boat, the fish divinity's boat, I've seen Anit's boat. They talk about the day and the night bark, the lunar bark and the solar bark and so forth. May I see the sun disk. May I see the moon. See, talking about the eye, the left eye is the moon, and the see, the sun disk, The eye, the right eye, is the sun. So we show the sun and the moon together operating in balance. These two eyes facilitate that expansive, fiery, explosive energy of the sun, the right eye, and then the contractive, magnetic, cool energy of the moon, the left eye. So the structure of Anit and Remi contains those pupils and their guides. Your eye and the whites of your eyes and so forth, holding the pupils in place. And when they dilate and then contract, expand and contract, you're talking about expansion and contraction of this energy depending on if it's light in the room or dark in the room and so forth, or light outside or dark outside. So you have the whites of the eyes, the whole eye structure, that little fish, and then the pupils inside. You have the sun and the moon, the left eye and the right eye and so forth. They are guiding the solar and lunar discs. So when it says, may I see the sun disk, may I see the moon and so forth, may I see through Anit, may I see through Remi, these fish divinities, these pilot divinities, may I see these solar and lunar orbs, but may I access the energy when I see them. When you see the sun and you see the moon, the energy of the sun penetrates your eyes, that stimulates you. It stimulates your pineal gland, it stimulates the secretion of hormones and so forth. When you see the moon, that lunar energy stimulates your organs and causes secretions as well. There's a release of serotonin and melatonin and everything else just by seeing. So we're not just talking about, beholding something. When you focus your attention and you receive the energy of the sun and the moon through those two eyes, through the shrines of Anit and Remi, they literally, on a physical level, stimulate hormonal secretions according to what your body needs. And spiritually, the deities that animate the sun and the moon and so forth, they connect with us through the Ba energy, the Ba'et energy, the divine living energy, and we link our energy with theirs. And once that link takes place, then we can participate in the functions that they participate in. When we link our energy with theirs, it's like when you take a deep breath and link the air in your small pocket of air with your lungs and link it to the air and the atmosphere that surrounds the entire planet. Now you're connected to the large source of air. When you link your divine living energy that's operating through your spirit body, ritually, through invocation, and link it through invocation, ritual song, ritual dance, ritual chant, ritual prayer, and you link your energy through that bond, through that rope of Anit and Remi, to the energy of a deity, then they can travel across that rope or bond of energy and possess you, that spirit possession, or communicate with you when you're engaged in divination. So you can learn directly from the deities when you make that energetic link with them. You make the energetic link through the Ba or Ba'et. Ba for males, Ba'et for females. So the Ka and Kai is the male and female terms for soul, the deity, dwelling in the head region. But the Ba in the Ba'et is the divine living energy of Ran moving through you, shown as a human-headed bird. Sometimes just the bird itself. That bird is sitting in your chest. The wings of the bird are the lungs. The heart is the, breast of the bird and so forth. And the head, of course, is your head. So once that bird's wings begin to expand and contract and your lungs expand and contract and so forth, that divine living energy moving through your bloodstream is ignited. And we can link our Ba energy or Ba'et energy with the energy of the deities. Once that link is made, that energetic link is made through that bond of Anit and Remi, then we can get possessed by them. They travel across that bond of energy, that rope, divine light energy. They travel across that, and spirit possession takes place. That happens in North America, that happens in the Western Hemisphere, that happens on the continent, wherever black people are. We get possessed by the deities and the ancestresses and ancestors. How does that take place? It is through the bond, the Ba'et, and that rope of energy, sustained by Anit and the Remi, through their sanctuaries, which are the eyes. And once we apprehend the sun and the moon and the energy moving through them, we maintain our balance and so forth. We stimulate, what we need to stimulate. If we're making mistakes, we lose focus. We start rationalizing self-destructive ideas. We start incorporating things in our lives that are self-destructive. Anit and Remi, when they're invoked, help us to maintain our balance or restore our balance, restore our focus. They rope us back in and get back in with the community who's moving in the direction that hot and heat led us to. This is the cosmology of these deities. So when we invoke them by name through ritual, through libation, ritual song, ritual prayer, chant, and so forth, Anit and Remi, then we bring them closer to us, and we bring ourselves closer to them. The same is true of any divinity that we're dealing with. All of these deities, male and female, who are connected to these forces in nature, connected to the so-called Zodiac and so forth, these are the exact same Abosom, Orisha, Vodou, NTORO divinities that we have been possessed by for hundreds of thousands of years. We didn't start getting possessed by these deities when the Babylonians and Greeks in the late period started creating some charts, and you saw some charts in Kemet coming from the Greeks. First of all, as we showed earlier, we started these star maps or charts before Greeks existed on Earth. We were laying these things out even with the stone structures like a Nabta Playa before we ever migrated into the Near East to establish the ancient civilization of Sumer. We carried these animal totems in our blood circles with us wherever we have gone, including into North America. This is why these animal totems visit us ritually through spirit possession, spirit communication. We're still connected to them spirit genetically. We still have ancestral clans who are connected to these very animal totems, the totem of the bull, the totem of the beetle, the totem of the ram, the totem of the scorpion. All these different totems are ancestral clan totems of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people only. And of course, the deities only communicate and possess our people. So of course, the whites and their offspring trying to associate themselves with clans, that's pure foolishness. No deity has ever communicated with them, nor will they ever. The whites and their offspring are cancerous cells within the body of humanity. Just like we are cells within the great divine body of the Supreme Being, and the organs, which are our parents, are our head deities. When we serve the organs that we are a component part of within the great divine body, then we're serving the great divinity, Amen and Aminet, the great mother, great father at the same time. Just like your cells serve your organs and they serve you, the great body, at the same time. We are children of different organs of deities, and we serve our parent organ or deity as cells. We're serving the great body. Amen, Amen, Nyamewa, Nyame, Olokun, Olorum, Mawun, Lisa at the same time. The whites and offspring are cancerous cells, those who became disfigured, stopped operating in harmony with the other cells and became disfigured, and once becoming disfigured, now they seek to consume and destroy all of the cells. And the remedy for the cancerous disfigured cells is their isolation and extermination. Exception. No exception. That is the remedy. That's the divine response. The immune system cells are designed, and lymphatic system cells, to seek out the cancerous disfigured cells, isolate them and kill them, exterminate them, and expel them from the body forever. That's the divine response to the whites and their offspring, the cancerous cells. So no deity communicates with the cancerous cells, just like your organs and systems don't embrace the cancerous cells. They isolate them and exterminate them because their existence is only temporal. It's a temporary existence. And when we understand that, we will eradicate these cells. So when they attempt to associate themselves with, certain clans, that's pure foolishness. That's charlatanism. The same is true of white Hindus, white Arabs, white pseudo-Native Americans, white Hispanics, and so forth. Only Afurakani people, African black people, are connected to these clans. So that's the information we wanted to go over tonight. If you have any questions on the phone line, you can hit the number 1. One of the things that we are engaged in, we have released our documentary film, and we are showcasing and screening this film in different cities. We've been to, of course, in Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Atlanta, Hartford, Connecticut. We're going to be in Toronto, Canada this weekend. We'll be in New Orleans and North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, California, Chicago, different places. We are confirming dates on a daily and weekly basis, so continue to check our website. What we have also is a discount on tickets, multiple ticket orders, as well as we just posted this recently, pre-ordering the DVD for the film. Many of you have seen the trailer. If you would like to pre-order the DVD, the pre-order price for the DVD, which is going to be coming out soon, is $15. It will be retail at a higher price once it's released. But for those who are, on our list, listen to our broadcast and so forth, the DVD, the pre-order is $15. We've had some people pre-order already. But what we have is a discount on multiple orders. That's for the DVD as well as tickets. So if you'd like to attend a screening in your city, you see the list of 40 cities that we've laid out. We're confirming dates as we speak. So as these dates are confirmed, when you purchase a ticket, any tickets that you purchase, your receipt is your ticket of entry for a film screening. So if you purchase a ticket now and you see that in a couple of days we have a date for North Carolina, you can use that ticket for North Carolina, or you can not use it for North Carolina and use it for New York, or you could use it for Virginia, or you could use it for whatever screening you want to. If you were going on vacation to California and you saw that we have a screening in California, you can use that $15 ticket, your receipt, for any screening in any city that you desire. So you can purchase a ticket at any time, even before we have every date for every city confirmed. We're confirming them on a regular basis, but you can get that, use it for any screen. We also have the multiple ticket discounts. One ticket is $15. 3 tickets is $40 instead of $45. It's $40. That's the discount. If you purchase 5 tickets instead of $75, that's $60 for 5 tickets. If you purchase 10 tickets, say you have a family, you have students, you have clients that you work with, or you want to give things away, tickets away for a gift, 10 tickets is $100. That drops to $10 a ticket. The same is true of the DVD. The DVD, the pre-order for the DVD is $15. If you order 3 DVDs, that is $40 for 3 DVDs, $60 for 5, $100 for 10. Our film is 2 hours and 17 minutes. We're dealing with the forms of ancestral divination we preserved in our blood circles in North America. Hoodoo, the Akhan tradition in North America. Voodoo, the Evan tradition in North America. Juju, which is actually the Yoruba tradition in North America. Wanga, which is the Obambo and Gullah tradition in North America. And Gangai, which is the Fang tradition in North America. All these traditions are represented, our divination systems that guided us and empowered us, like Anit and Remi, to wage war against the whites and offspring and force the end of enslavement. This is what we deal with. The film features Voodoo Queen Kalinda Laveau out of New Orleans, Kajara Niyane the Het out of Atlanta, who's based in Atlanta now, Wabet Sashatu Wajet, who is based in Florida now, Mama Mawuthi Ashakir, who is based in Cincinnati, Ohio. Myself, I'm based now in Washington. I'm from Chicago, but based in Washington, D.C. for the past few years. All of us are in the film. The film is 2 hours and 17 minutes. It's really an edumentary as opposed to just a documentary. It's a film to be studied. It's a great deal of information. So it's a teaching tool. So if you order 3 or 5 or 10 and so forth, this can be given away as gifts. It's no different than giving away an encyclopedia as a gift. Ordering 10 for 100 and giving them away to 10 people, that's like giving a $10 gift to 10 people. But the key is they're getting something that's empowering. It's not just like purchasing a movie like Panther or something like that that's not going to empower our people. So, or educate our people properly. So what we're doing right now, we're having that discount for the people who listen to the broadcast, who are on our list and so forth. We're working to confirm these dates for these cities immediately. The only way we can confirm the dates is when people purchase tickets or they purchase the DVD. We use those funds to rent out the theaters or the Black-owned business that we showcase the film in. We rent those out, and then we go and showcase the film. So when people order, that assists us in engaging in this process. So please go right now. We're having a drive this week because we want to cover some expenses so we can lay out the next 10 cities this week. We want to confirm 10 cities this week. The only way we can do that, and the key is you will be able to see what cities are coming up next. Those cities that have the most support, those are the ones, of course, that we can establish, and rent out, theaters, or rent out the venue so that we can screen the film next. So we want to confirm 10 cities this week, proper dates, this week so we can put them on the website. The only way we can do that is if people either order tickets or pre-order the DVDs, and then we use those funds to rent out the venue. So if you can go now, anybody listening on the phone line or you're listening to the broadcast after it's archived and so forth, going to, for example, ordering the three DVDs for $40, or ordering 3 tickets for $40 and giving out tickets to your spouse or your, couple of your close friends, having a few people do that, 10 people ordering that, that's enough money to pay for a couple of venues and so forth. We can pay for a couple of venues and book 2 cities just with 10 people ordering, the 3 CDs for $40. We can, for example, set up North Carolina, like Durham, North Carolina, and Charleston, South Carolina, just with 10 people. So if we get 10, 15, 20 people to begin ordering DVDs now, we can start laying out the rest of these cities. We've gone through a number of cities, but we have like 36 cities left that we want to get to, and we can only do that with your support. So if you go to our website, Odwirafo_ADEBISA.html, even if you just go to Odwirafo.com, you'll see that on the front page of the website. You'll see the big image of the movie poster with the crow and the seashell and so forth, and the movie poster for us. Please go to that site, place that order for either the DVDs or the tickets. Yeah, I'll say we thank you to everyone who's purchased, pre-ordered the DVD so far. We've had about 4 or 5 people do that since we just recently posted this information with the discounts recently. And we've had people come out to the screenings in the different cities and pre-order tickets for their cities coming up. Yeah, I'll say we thank you for that. So if you have not yet had a chance to do so, please do that now while you still have it fresh in your memory. Help us to get out to these cities as soon as possible. There's a great deal of misinformation being propagated by individuals in documentaries, lectures, of course the whites and offspring promoting perverse culture under the guise of diversity and all of this nonsense, drug addiction and everything else, self-destructive behavior. We have a film that empowers our people just from one sitting. So please support this film so we can get out to as many of our people as possible. So, Yedase, we thank you for tuning into this broadcast. We will meet again. It's up.